There is a fifth dimension.
About the unknown.
Beyond that which is known to man.
The Garden of Thought.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace.
Unexplained.
Mythologies.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call...
The Garden of Thought with Jeff Lippman.
Welcome, everyone, into Garden of Thought. We're welcoming in an author this week. His name is Seth Voorhees. He's the cousin of Jason. As he said, we have not fact-checked that, and we're not going to, and neither should any of you. He's the author of multiple books. He's coming to us from the Black Hills in South Dakota. Are you in the Black Hills of South Dakota right now?
I am, absolutely, yeah. I live in Rapid City. Very nice day. It's snowing about 24 hours ago, and that's how April is. 80 one day, 40 degrees the next, 20 the next day, back to 80 the next after that.
Is it in fact Rapid in Rapid City?
Yes, Rapid, yep. Rapid City.
Are there lots of...
outside of the Black Hills.
Are there lots of rapids, like in the waters? Is that what it's named for? Like having cataracts and things?
We do have actually a rapid, a creek. It's called Rapid Creek, and yeah, actually, it is real fast, actually. They actually do recommend you don't swim in most of the year.
All right. So for those of you who are outside of the United States or in the larger plains, probably wondering why am I making such a big deal about this? So America is sort of separated. It's pretty big. I know almost nobody from the Dakotas. I've never been to the Dakotas. I've never been to Montana. So, I still picture it as being exactly like it was in the show Deadwood, which I'm not even sure was in the Dakotas, because I know Yankton was the local governance area that they kept referring to, which is somewhere in that part of the world. But so, of course, I make a big deal of it. And, for my listeners who are in Iraq, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka, who went up greatly over the last week, and then some went down the next week, they're probably just VPN users in the US and UK. I'm doing this little geography lesson for you, which is really cultural more than actual geography. All right. You have a bachelor's in science and sociology and psychology from Black Hills State University. You live with your partner and your stepdaughter, but I have learned that there's maybe a plural there, but we don't need to explore that unless we need to. And you've written 4 books at least.
4 so far, yeah.
4 so far, and I'm
more in my head. Just released 4. Way more in mine, though.
Well, you know what? You're an actual author's producer, so those count. I have some books in my head, but given that I've never completed one in the close to 40 years I've been thinking about it, then it doesn't count as a book. It just counts as an idea. So, first of all, I also want to thank your publicist. And so we're going to thank Mickey Michelson at Creative Edge Publicity. So thanks again, Mickey, for sending us over another, well, I'm sure will be wonderful guest. The prior books are The Interim, Question 17, Midglow, and the current book is Immune, Rise of the Inflicted, which, of course, leads me to believe that there will be further books in the Immune series, assuming that it does well enough to have sequels. I might be wrong. Tell us a little bit about yourself that obviously I did not cover.
I mean, I'm, like you said, I am from Rapid. I've lived in South Dakota my whole life. And yes, I've never seen the show Deadwood, actually. But yes, Yankton is part of the capital. It's not as close as I'm sure the show makes it sound. It's like 5 hours apart, so I'm not sure. I've never watched Deadwood because I might be disappointed on it, because I feel like a lot of people I've read books about Deadwood and fiction books, and they always try to make it sound like it's flat prairie, which most of South Dakota is, but Deadwood is not in a very prairie landscape. That'd be like me saying Vegas desert is very green and lush, very inaccurate a lot of times. But yeah, I got 4 books, and I didn't really start writing until I was in my 30s, actually. I did it for fun and enjoyment. When I was young, wrote my first novel in high school, and then I kind of took a break from writing just as a profession. I did more just dabbling for fun. And so, yeah, 31 is when I started taking it more serious and like, oh, I want to get into it and start publishing and, getting my books out there because, there's a lot of joy in seeing your name on a cover and having it out there. And yeah, I might have a sequel for Immune if it does well enough. I left it definitely open for a sequel, absolutely. But, it doesn't, I can't do it full time at the moment, so I have a great job working for a nonprofit where I do a lot of evidence-based curriculum, education, and training. And yeah, with that degree you mentioned in sociology and psychology, I've worked in the field of youth mental health. Ages 10 to 19 is usually the target range, so adolescents. Been working with them for, almost 16 years or so. But yeah, doing various things, either mental health counseling or floor staff supervisor, all sorts of different roles.
Yet you're brave enough to write under your real name. Your pen name is the same name as your professional name. So
that is.
Yeah, I mean that.
I debate about a pen name once in a while because I'm like, I wonder if I should just for the heck of it. But I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, just to keep, parents are always going to attack teachers over something, and I mean, you're literally giving them material to use. I mean, anyway, but not my decision, not my choice, not my business. In the little defense of Deadwood, they made it pretty clear that Yankton was a pretty long journey. Like it was like definitely like a overnight trip. Like, you could do it pretty easily, but it was a doing. Like people did it regularly, but it was a doing. Also, it definitely was on a flat, but it wasn't prairie. It was more muddy. It was like always muddy because they were always building stuff and things like that. And it was definitely close to mountains because there were a lot of things that happened in mountains. So mountains were at least half a day or a day's ride away.
Well, it's deep in the canyon. It's deep in Spearfish Canyon.
Okay.
So yeah, muddy would be true if that part is accurate. But there's a conjoining town called Bleed. And if you want to know how big the hills are, I remember my grandfather telling me when they first got the very first cars, back in the 20s, it was easier to drive them in reverse at times because the hills were so steep.
Well, I hope that you do watch it, and then you can come back and we can talk about it. But mostly because you are an author, and I assume more literarily savvy and educated than I am, that you can tell me what play that it was sort of taking from, or what plays, because there are definitely characters that were part of a chorus. And, there was a whole season where one of the main characters was talking to a decapitated head of an Indian chief, almost, was it Hamlet or Macbeth that was talking to a skull? It doesn't matter. It's but yeah, I think so too. I am not good with Shakespeare. Now, I try every now and then. I see someone goes, this wonderful, movie version of Richard III or whatever, or Henry VIII, and I put it on. I last like 10 minutes. It's just like, no, can't do it. Anyway, enough about me and my many failings. Let's talk about you and your many successes. So take us on the road from educator, sociologist, working with kids, to writer, and and what inspired you to write your first book, and tell us a little bit about the first book, and then you can sort of take us on your journey through the 3 books, and then we'll focus on the current book, obviously.
Okay, so the first book I wrote in high school, is that what we're talking about?
I'm thinking about the first published one, but if the first book you wrote in high school is meaningful, well, yeah, whatever you want.
Well, my first published book was actually The Interim. That was my very first published one. That one came out back in 2018, actually. It was a good book. I like it. It's a horror novel. That's where, when your last name is Voorhees, you gotta be into dark fiction, and horror is a must. So The Interim is about a small town in South Dakota named Copper, and for about 12 days out of the year, I think it's October 20th through November 1st, it's cursed by a very maleficent force. And you learn historically and eventually through the book how that force got developed and created, and why it's cursing the town, and they have to follow certain rules in order to survive. But they eventually, the youth of the town get kind of tired of it, so they form a little group, and they eventually take on the creature and try to get rid of the interim as a societal construct of their town. And I figured out the reason the citizens will put up with it, because that was one of my questions when I was writing. It's like, well, if there's 12 days out of the year where you have to live in this horror, why on earth would you live in the town? So the answer to that is, for the rest of the year, the town's a utopia. There's no crime, there's no errors, there's no fights, there's just nothing negative going on. So they put up with it. So that was actually my first novel.
It sounds very Stephen King. That sounds.
It was very Stephen King. It was influenced more by Something Wicked This May Come, that great story, and then just my love for circuses, because there's a circus in it. I don't want to give away too much.
Oh, I love psycho clowns. I love evil clowns.
Yeah. We all do. We all do. I did not base it off it. I'm sure that's what everyone. There is a clown in it. So the monster's name is Leopold. And I'm sure a few people are going to go, oh, well, did you get inspired by it? I actually read it later. I'm kind of a late bloomer when it came to reading it. I didn't read it.
I would assume you were inspired by Bugs Bunny.
Well, I was inspired by Bugs Bunny. He was fun, too. He was quite the trick.
As Leopold, when there was the maestro Leopold.
Yeah, Leopold's just a little more mean in the book. Bugs Bunny was a little more violent.
Bugs Bunny is actually pretty violent.
Well, that is too, but that is true. He is kind of violent.
Yeah.
He likes to get everyone's attention through little mean tricks. But I used to watch that as a kid too. People don't like Bugs Bunny as much now. I don't know if he's as popular as he used to be, but
I don't know, because people are not normal anymore. It's the world's gone mad in like so many terrible ways. I mean, just like Bugs Bunny is this. Bugs Bunny's funny. I mean, it's just funny silliness. It's a cartoon, I guess. I'm sure there's lots of valid reasons, like on paper, why people could defame Daffy Duck or whatever. But come on, it's a duck. Yeah. But when it becomes public domain, I'm like the people who make those Winnie the Pooh and Popeye and Bambi, like terrible horror movies, like the fun they could have with Bugs Bunny. And most of those movies are fairly awful, but every now and then they're okay. And let's face it, with something like that, okay is good enough. That's right. Expectations are. So is this, not to get too much into the details of the plot, but is it sort of like 12 days of the purge, or 12 days of 28 days, originally
like the 12 days of Christmas, but turned it into 12 days of Halloween and turned it into a little more of a sinister thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Really what it was.
Now, does anyone move in and out of this town?
I don't really talk about that really in the story. I mean, some people do, but yeah, I never got to that point. I just focused on the main characters are 5 youth around the middle school, high school age. And so I just focused on their lives primarily and just how they have to deal with it and how they had to survive. So their past with it, and then how they eventually do the research, because every horror story has to have someone doing research to figure out how to succeed. It's always how it is, the staple.
Well, and also going back to C.S. Lewis, it's, the kids are the ones who, are in touch with the veil. They're more willing to accept the supernatural and adapt into dealing with it. They usually need some reluctant or doubting adult to come along for the ride. But yeah, okay. So The Interim sounds like a good classic horror story set in sort of isolation horror, which is sort of cool. What's the time period for it? Is it in modern day, present day, or is it in cowboy times?
I believe I said in the early 2000s.
Okay, so
fairly modern.
Semi-modern.
It was quite before the iPhone. You can tell by reading that it was before the iPhone.
Right. Still a Motorola flip phone, maybe before Blackberries, or maybe right on the cusp of Blackberry, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure I have the world's highest score on Brick Breaker, and nobody's ever proved me wrong on that. All right, so the next book was?
So then that was the actual Immune. So that's the book.
Oh, okay.
The second edition is what's out now.
Okay.
So the first edition of Immune came out, horrible timing because it's a pandemic narrative, and it came out December of 2019. So literally like a month before COVID really hit the ground running, and we went in their lockdown and all that stuff. So
and you wrote it while you were on sabbatical in Wuhan, so it's all your fault.
Well, I know, right? No, wait, yeah, I wasn't on sabbatical. I was considered essential staff, so I still worked a lot during COVID, unfortunately. But no, it was published and completed way before any of that. So usually when I told people about the story, they actually were always saying, like, well, you were probably inspired by Stephen King's The Stand, right? Because anytime you write a pandemic narrative, people always say you're inspired by The Stand, as if The Stand was the very first pandemic narrative ever written in existence, which it wasn't. And I always tell them, no, sorry, unfortunately, I've actually never read The Stand.
Yeah.
Even though I am a horror fan, I've never read it. So it was not inspired by that. Pandemic-wise, it was inspired by two things. One was I Am Legend, which, had the great vampire pandemic narrative, which was an excellent story. I always encourage people to read that.
Excellent book. Not a very excellent movie.
Excellent, but not the movie, but the book, absolutely excellent. And then the other one was swine flu, for those who remember swine flu back when it was kind of hitting the United States. Because I remember, I love walks. I always go on a walk. It always helps my inspiration and creativity. And so I was walking one day, and I was thinking, what would really suck is if you had a pandemic happen, and you were immune for some reason. Like maybe you had a body type or something that just, you were immune from this virus, but you had to watch the whole world around you just suffer and be destroyed. What would that, how would that impact your psyche? So, and that thought always stayed with me for a good 2-3 years until eventually I wrote the story and incorporated into Immune. Then, of course, the narrative. And then also at that time, too, The Walking Dead was, the thing, the big world of horror was The Walking Dead. So I did incorporate a little zombies into the story. So the zombie narrative is not very long in Immune, but what makes it better than I think most zombie narratives is they come out of the zombie phase and they remember everything that happened. Oh. And so that's when their group becomes the Inflicted, which I did on purpose because I know a few people that said, isn't it should be afflicted? And I'm like, it's fiction. Just go with it. Just go with it, people. But anyway, so they form that group, and then that's a lot of what the story is just this back and forth between the groups, Immune and the Inflicted, and just their power struggle to be in charge of the country and society and the world eventually. And, so that's a lot of what the story is about. So it's not so much just everyone dying.
Is there a third group that aside from dying, never gets out of the afflicted into inflicted stage? I'm sorry, they're still sort of like monsters running around?
So what happens with the inflicted group is first they're the ones who get sick. They get the virus. They die. And then eventually they come back as zombies.
Oh, okay.
If they were lucky to not get destroyed as a zombie, then they come back out of it.
So they've returned. So they actually cure. So the fever actually burns through. It kills you. Then you get resurrected, and that I guess leads to a whole lot of confusion.
Oh yes. Yeah. And then they come out of that resurrected phase, kind of remembering everything they did as the zombie and before that, and so forth and so forth.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's sort of hard to say. Okay, like I ate 700 people, but I was a zombie, dude. It's okay. You get a pass. I'm sure that wreaks havoc with somebody's psyche, and others maybe not so much. And and then others, turn to drinking, and all of those fun things. Yeah, I mean, definitely in the age of pandemic. I mean, the Stand was by no means the first, Contagion kind of thing. I mean, I think Michael Crichton also was Omega Man. That was the Andromeda Man.
Oh yes, no, that was a good
the Andromeda Strain. Right. I always get yes. That was
that was a good book too.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah. Oh, so many good stories. And so I got the rights back because the first publisher who had Immune, had some issues, and so we wound up getting the rights back. So then I republished it. I went through it again, kind of added a few things, tweaked a few things here and there, and then just republished it. So yeah, the second edition is what's out right now. Not a lot of major changes, but enough to, it's fun to always go through your work, at least for me, and just see the development of the craft, like how I've changed as an author because I was, the summer of 2005, and then it was first released 2019, so that's a few years of work in between there, so I got to see how much I changed and
Well, what separates your vision of this kind of reality from, like, say, The Last of Us or The Walking Dead or, The Strain, the I Am Legend, there's horror books and then there's, sort of alien invasion books, which, they're almost the same in some ways in that, a lot of people die, some people collaborate, and others are somehow immune to whatever it is, and some form some sort of resistance or resistances, but everyone. Well, maybe not everyone likes something unique because sort of the same formula seems to have some repetitive degree of success. But what was different about yours? What was the thing that you would say? Listen. If you're sick of Walking Dead and all of their, spin-offs, this is why you should still check out my book because it's different.
So for me, I love to touch on more human elements and other themes. So, like, for example, the main character, Wyatt, he's a recovering alcoholic, very spiritual. So I loved just the journey and the telling of how he maintains his positivity and his spirituality in his sobriety through all of this destruction and death and what's going on. How do you maintain hope while the world's burning around you? And that's something he has to do throughout the entire story. Another great example, and because I have characters on both the immune side and the inflicted, and one of the characters in the inflicted who I really fell in love with, and when you read the story you can tell, her name is Helen Olsen, and she has quite the journey. She dies, she's with her partner Tamara, and there's a lot of back and forth between them having to hide each other from the other group while also living in the world where whichever group's dominant at the time, they have to kind of go by those rules. And she eventually becomes the director of the ISC, which is the replacement for the CIA after the world burns. And so while she's helping the world that's now run by the inflicted take care of the immune, she's also having to hide her partner, who is a member of the immune, at home. And so there's just, how did that affect her as a character? I don't want to go into great detail about that, but that affects her decisions and her choices. So there's a lot of that human element as well. Another character, I hate to give away too much, but there's a lot of other characters that, they start off with great morals and then they wind up joining a terrorist group. Then there's others who, members of the immune who actually become spies for the inflicted, and it becomes a lot of have a little dual codependent relationship. I mean, so it isn't just about, hey, it's this one group and this group, and we're just going to fight each other and kill each other, and everyone's going to die. There's just, life is normal with politics, and things get crossed in between. Everyone lives in the gray area in reality, and I think that's what I love to do is explore that gray area in Immune. So yeah, it's way more than just a pandemic narrative.
Yeah, you got a little Game of Thrones in there also.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones, House of Cards, all the politics, all the politics is the people making crises, sometimes crises making people, all of that good stuff. Okay, so I didn't know the order of the book, so that's interesting. But I obviously you had certain issues with what the original publishers did, and you took out some of their editorials and you made it more towards your original vision, and perhaps even with some things that you rethought or whatever. But you made it your own. So this new edition, even if people read the old edition, well, maybe especially if they read the old edition, they might be interested in this one because it's like the director's cut, literally. I don't like to say literally too many times in one show, but it seems appropriate when I'm talking about an author.
Oh, no worries. I'm from the Midwest, so I got to be careful about saying just so and well. Those are the three different things. You'll hear that all the time, especially in South Dakota. Like, if the weather's going to be bad, you'll hear, well, I guess weather's going to come, or, well, it's time to go, sweetie. Well, the party's ending. We say that all the time.
Yeah. Well, when I went to university in Georgia, I had to learn the do what it meant. And I thought that was just a Southern thing, but it's apparently not just a Southern thing because I only was there in the South for 3.5 years. And do what is, I don't know what kind of thing it is, but it's, maybe that's something I should explore at some point. I'll do a whole show on the origins of do what and how it's spread. All right, so then I guess we're going to bounce around then to what was the next book then?
So the next book, my third one, was called Mid-Glow. So that one is a little more historical fiction and not so much straight horror and as dark, I would say.
Love historical fiction.
It's a little historical. It's centered around World War II, around the time of Pearl Harbor. So the main characters, see, I said so. See, there's $1 in the jar right there.
Exactly.
The main character, Philip, he's with a group of bank robbers, and they're robbing a few banks in order to, survive. It's the, Great Depression, everyone's struggling. And he eventually discovers that a lot of the banks they were robbing the money was owned by the same person. And so the person winds up extorting them, basically saying, either go to prison or work for me. Pick one. So obviously they don't want to go to prison, so they decide to work with him. He's a European gentleman named Dr. Dracoon. Very, strange, eccentric, has a lot of weird hobbies. He has a hotel in the Deep South in Kentucky, and so they go to the hotel, and they just start doing odd jobs for him, like grave robbing and some midnight drops and midnight pickups and just things, of that nature.
Please be a vampire. Please be a vampire. Please be a vampire.
It's not a vampire, but if you do like old classic horror movies and horror stories, there is a little bit of a twist into it that's embedded. So I'm not going to give it away, obviously. But
I have turned him into Vincent Price already. I just hope you realize that.
No. Well, Dr. Dracoon has a business partner, Mr. Grigor, who they rotate times they're at the hotel, and that's kind of added with the mystery. And then there's eventually a few women start going missing, and so it's just this big mystery. And eventually
is it a Jekyll and Hyde thing? There is no partner.
I'm not going to say anything. I can't tell you. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to read it, purchase it, and buy it.
So that's true.
But anyway, so Philip, he gets into the mystery a little more deep into it, and eventually has to help figure out what the heck's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
My first attempt at a mystery. I don't know if it's my greatest attempt. I'm still working on trying to figure out the skill of a mystery, a great mystery book. I'm always impressed with people who can write great mysteries, because I don't know, I don't have the brain power sometimes with it. I get confused really easily. I like reading mysteries, but I'm not going to lie, I'm not that person who can read a 400-page mystery and remember like a fact that gets brought back up like 130 pages later, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember so-and-so mentioned that. I'm not that person. My memory doesn't do that.
Well, I think the best mystery book maybe of all time is a book that most people don't even think is a mystery book, and that is Day of the Jackal, which at its heart is a law enforcement show, and it all turned on like a piece of paper with a false clue that led in the right direction, and I don't know. So, and for anybody who's watched all of the numerous versions of the Jackal, Day of the Jackal, and whatever you think of those, whether you thought they were terrible, good, or in between, none of them are like the original book. And the great Frederick Forsyth is pretty much untouchable. He's like, best in class. Great Frederick Forsyth. I'm not talking about everything that everybody's, written. If you trust my taste anyway. What I forgot to ask you? And not that we're done yet, but what was the cause of the affliction in the Inflicted?
I never really go into too much detail about that. I figured that was a mystery I wanted to keep, and if I have a sequel, I would incorporate it in there. So I didn't go too in depth. I just wanted to start with the main character. I give the virus a name. I don't recall offhand what it is. It's like A1 something. I don't remember. I apologize. But yeah, I don't go to great.
Then the steak sauce people sued you for defamation, and you had to change that.
Yeah. Gotta keep it under the wrap. So no, if I do a sequel, I'll do more of that.
Okay, good. You're not going to pull like
I keep it a mystery, to be honest. I was like, you know what? Let's just leave it a mystery.
Yeah, so sometimes the answers we want, that's where people don't stick the landing, and that's really hard to do. But like a lot of people gave up on Walking Dead along the way.
I did too, actually. I am one of those people.
I am too. I lasted long enough to see Rick Grimes dead for all the wrong reasons. I wanted him to the first time that I started giving up was the beginning of season 2, when at the cliffhanger of season 1, they get to the CDC, Noah Emmerich's there, all the light is there, like the hatch in Lost, and you think you're going to at least learn about the cause of the virus, and not that that's going to cure anything, because clearly they couldn't cure anything. So telling you where it came from doesn't really change any of the story. It's just it's like they're like, hey, we've got some food in the vending machines, I'll get out. It's like.
Yeah, I think it was season 6. It was whatever season was where the cliffhanger was. They're going to go to war with Negan.
Yeah.
So it's the season, whatever season it was, where Glenn died and Abraham died, and then they're going to war, and then there's the cliffhanger, and it ends. That's where I stopped.
You know what? I think that's where I stopped. Because Abraham was the Benedict Arnold of the whole thing. Making bullets and IEDs for Negan. People love Negan. I was not into Negan. I'm just like, he's just the governor again, and the governor was the least interesting. Anyway, the governor, interestingly enough, British actor in a show called Britannica, which like 2 seasons of it are really interesting, and then it just gets like whack-a-mole, and then I think it just went off the air. But the funny thing is, in season 1, you realize that Beth Dutton from Yellowstone is also British or Irish or something, because she's in there. And for those of you who are interested in this sort of thing, her boobies are out a couple times. So so hey, free tip there. Anyway, the other book, the third of the 4, we have talked about 3 so far, but what was the one that I guess is most recent?
So the most recent is Question 17. That's the one that came out also the summer of 2025. I kind of published it at the same time I got the rights back for Immune, so it was kind of nice. I got to do 2 books at once. But Question 17 is a dystopian novel as well about aliens. So it takes place on Earth 46 years after a war with alien invaders. And so the world, a lot of the countries have changed, the world's changed. And there's a secret facility called the Willow Lock in the middle of the ocean. And every few years, they hire a bunch of interns from one of the most prestigious universities in the country to come work there. And one of the main characters' name is Corey. And so he goes there, he becomes really close with the director, whose name is Theta. No one has their own original name on the island. He finds out they're all fake names. So her name is Theta, which I love that name. Her head of security is called Upsilon, so, little Greek letters there for those who don't know. But anyway, so he eventually discovers that the whole premise of the island's work is based off this series of questions that when the war ended all those years ago, the president and all the governing body of the country said, all right, we need to know more about these aliens. And they came up with a list of questions like, can you duplicate their technology? Can you fly their ships? Can can we do this and that? And so they're using this facility to solve all those questions. And question 17 is the last question of the entire list. It's the very last one. I'm not going to go into detail of what the question is because then that gives away the story. But Corey eventually has a lot of, back and forth with his morals, his values of trying to, wanting to figure out if he should go along with it or keep it going because he does find out there are aliens on the island. I'm not going to go into more detail other than that too. But yeah, it's very much a lot of what can you stand morally? Like what can you do for work versus what you can't do as just a regular, person, stick to your own convictions kind of story with him.
So it seems as though, I'm going to say seems, because not that I have any indication that it's the other way. I don't know, and I'm not going to ask you because you wouldn't give it away. But it seems as though humans prevailed in that war.
Oh yeah, in the war that ended years ago, yes, humans prevailed. And I do go into detail of how they won the war, what were the some of the battles, and the things that helped. So yeah, I do go into more detail with that.
How did we beat any aliens that were able to travel from another star system or planet? I'm having some assumptions in there that they got to this planet and decided to attack. I figured that we'd be squashed like bugs. I saw was it Begonia? What's that?
In reality, we probably will.
Yeah. What was the movie with Emma Stone. I don't know Emma Stone or Emily Blunt. I don't know the difference between them. But the Begovia, something that just came out that at the end, the aliens, spoiler alert, decided the humans were no good and just hit a button and like we were just like all instantly dead. And
I don't know that one.
Oh yeah. It actually was up for an Oscar, but since like 47 movies were nominated for Best Picture this year, it's good. There were 3 movies that came out at the same time. I mean, they're not the same movie at all, but they're all sort of, they're crazy conspiracy theories, but part of the crazy conspiracy theory is true to various extents, and and humans are weird, right. And the one was One Battle After Another, which was probably the most successful of them. The other was Eddington, which was probably the least successful of them. And then there was this one, Begovia. And they all came out too close to each other. They probably should have like done one a year. Or maybe they shouldn't have all been like in the theater, and like they could have been like, a 8-episode or 4-episode show on like, Netflix or Max or something, and probably would have done better. Except for One Battle After Another, which I think it tanked in the theaters too.
Was that the one with Tom Cruise? No, I'm thinking of some. When you mentioned Emily Blunt, all I could think of was the one with Tom Cruise, and he keeps dying, and he has to relive the same day over and over.
Oh, that's Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, something like that.
And
she's in The Quiet Place too. She's in a lot of alien movies.
Okay, then it's Emma Stone, because it's definitely not the same woman. So thank you for that.
Okay.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio is in One Battle After Another. Sean Penn.
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen that movie. I've heard of it.
The woman won an Oscar. Titania George. I'm sorry, I'm so bad. Obviously, if I don't know the difference, if I didn't know the difference between Emma Stone and Emily Blunt until this moment, I'm not going to know supporting actresses and actors' names. It was good. It was whack, and what I didn't like about all of those movies is that in them, parts or large parts of the conspiracy theories were true. So it sort of like invalidated the validation, and but that made the most sense in Begonia. I'm going to keep saying Begonia, even if it's Begovia, because otherwise there's no point to the movie. So in that regard, that one was truer to itself. Sorry, everyone, if you didn't see those movies, or you weren't intending to, or you think that I spoiled something, but like none of them are new. So shut up.
It was a good year for horror at the Oscars anyway, at least with Frankenstein, Sinners, and Weapons. At least that was the most I think I've ever seen horror actually recognized as a category this year. Because normally they're all snubbed. They're always snubbed.
You're right. And there's been a lot of really good movies, which like I think when Silence of the Lambs did really well, like people bent over backwards not to call it horror. Of course, it's a horror movie. But like, going back 10 years, almost 10 years, The Witch, really good. Heretic was really good. I know that people love Sinners. I actually thought Weapons was a lot better, but that's okay. It's not like I thought Sinners stunk. I just didn't.
Yeah, I like both. Both of them were good. Well, Frankenstein was good too. I mean, I read the book, so I knew what it wasn't fully to the source material, but I still think they did a fairly decent job doing it. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty true to the material. I thought that what they added for the most part didn't really add much of anything. I did find that the Russian ship captain probably shouldn't have been the most interesting character, but he was to me. I don't know, but I'm also like very against Oscar Isaac. I like from his introduction to me in Star Wars, like I just associate him with screwing up things that I love. So I've never liked him. It's like I have to climb a large hill up to enjoy anything that he's in. He's like sort of like the reverse Pedro Pascal, where like he started out in all things I like, and so it took a while for me to get sick of him because he's in everything now. But I was favorably, I'm like, oh, that guy. He was that guy for 10 years until I learned his name. Like he was Pablo Escobar in Narcos. I mean, come on, it was great. So Ex Machina, I liked Ex Machina. I will say that. But with old Oscar, I mean, he Moon Knight, I couldn't stand it. It's like, he's a killer for me. Anyway, this is getting way off the topic of your books.
No worries. Well, I like talking about horror, so no worries.
What's question 16? Does any of this get biblical? Does any of this get into Seven Seals or anything?
No, I try to kind of avoid the whole biblical stuff. I try to avoid religion, anything even related, all that. No, I try not to get into that stuff. So.
But it's all there. I mean, if anyone... Okay, I know for a while Neil Gaiman was canceled, but then apparently he was acquitted, so I don't know if he's uncanceled or not. Either way, he wrote the Norse Eddas in sort of plain English, but sort of kept the prose, and then he narrated himself, so it's a really good audiobook, and so whether you like him or not, he did a fantastic job on that. I think if he or someone with a similar skill set did the same thing to the Bible, especially the Old Testament, and republished it under a different name, just change some of the names or whatever, it would be classified as a horror book. I mean, it would be...
Yeah. I think because of my work with youth, and I've been doing it for so long, I always try to keep my books kind of tamed to where they could read them. So I have often thought if I really wanted to write a book with my real, true... hardcore opinions, or even wanting to go opposite of those opinions and had to tie in a lot of race, religion, culture, things like that, I'd probably have to use a pen.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was my first thought, is that if you put anything with even sex or anything controversial in it, it's going to offend someone, or someone's going to want to be offended and cast that as an aspersion against you. So a pen name's a good thing. I just think there's somebody took the time and just took the tales of the Old Testament, and maybe, you don't even have to touch the pseudepigrapha, but you could, and turned it into some sort of epic, and took the time and the place somewhere else and changed some of it around. I think it would fool enough people. I mean, some people would figure it out, but I'm pretty convinced that most religious people really have never read it. I mean, we're coming off a week where Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of War, cited what he thought was part of Ezekiel's, and no, what he cited was the fantastic Samuel L. Jackson speech from Pulp Fiction, which is not actually in the Bible. So, but he definitely thought it was. And he definitely thinks he's a Christian warrior. And he's definitely quoting Quentin Tarantino. I mean, so that's...
if you're going to quote some great person from a movie, Samuel L. Jackson, he's giving you the best stuff.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff you can't quote on TV and radio, he says too, but he's giving you a lot of good stuff.
So let me tell you a true story. So, okay. I mean... everything I've told you is true, but this one is directly on point here. So at some point when I was young in the iPhone days and apps were new to me, not to normal people, but to me, I actually had a 22-cent credit on iTunes or the App Store. And I saw an app, or somebody referred me to this app, which was a Samuel L. Jackson Says Things, and it was 99 cents. So because I had a credit, it was 67 cents. The best 67 cents I have ever spent in my entire life. I would dare say perhaps the best 67 cents anybody will have ever spent in their entire lives, in the history of the modern value of 67 cents being, not very much. And there were 60 different things, and you push, and Samuel L. Jackson would you couldn't tailor it. It was only a 99 cent app. Right. But and there was, and it was just, this is my first wife, so I can say it, but and I think she would even remember it, but there were times where I'd have an entire conversation with her where I would just pick the appropriate Samuel L. Jackson quote, or even the inappropriate one to do, to be funny, and could actually hold an entire conversation. Not a very productive conversation, just with Samuel L. Jackson responding to me. Now, a lot of you heard, that's my first wife. So maybe that was part of the path to that happening. Who can say? This is called Garden of Thought. It was called Garden of Doom. Not a place for marital advice. If you're coming here for marital advice, you're definitely on the wrong show. But
I'll give you my advice, but it may not be good
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's something to be said for it. Is there any way for the afflicted to force becoming inflicted without dying, without being killed by someone else, or whatever it takes to then be, I guess I won't say resurrected, but well, I don't know what else to call it except coming back to life, because resurrected is sort of a religious word, but
so when they're the zombies, you kill them like normal, like you would in any zombie narrative.
And they stay dead.
Yeah, and then they stay dead. So the ones who came out of the zombie phase were just the lucky ones who never got their heads bashed in or stabbed in the brain or anything like that. They just managed to wander the earth long enough to not get killed and eat whatever they could. So then they come out of it. There's kind of
so like your cousin Jason, if he was just stuck at the bottom of Crystal Lake, just stuck down there, and then became unzombified and like managed to swim up and get some air, he would have been afflicted then unflicted.
Yes. So there's like a little period where they had to hurry up though, because then they do become human. So if you were in the bottom of the lake, you were able to swim back up in time, you would survive. But I guess if you had a chain around your ankles and you were under the water, then you would have drowned and you would have died like a normal human being. So then they just don't have any powers or anything. They still have the scars and the look of being a zombie and being inflicted, just that illness kind of appearance. But yeah, then all their functions come back to normal and they can die.
Does becoming scarred and disfigured become like the new sexy?
It does a little bit, yeah. At least with the inflicted, maybe not with the immune. They still kind of fight over those things. But then that ties into, more of that human,
because everything's gray. Attractiveness is gray. Everything is gray. Everything is fluid. I mean that seems to be a theme with your stories, but that's a theme with all good stories. I mean, Tony Soprano, one of the great characters of all time. Not a great guy, a terrible guy, but yeah, a great character. And that's, I think, and listen, I think great fiction writers and creators putting that truth in the mainstream has sort of afflicted all of us to an extent. I mean, I used to joke, no, I wasn't really joking, but I knew it was unpopular. I say that the turning point of our society, well, I said I've used this a few times. One, when they put ain't in the dictionary, that was sort of giving up. But the big one is like when Batman became more popular than Superman. That's sort of the inflection point. Like when the Punisher became the most, one of the most popular characters in the Marvel universe, and also Wolverine, who by the way was my favorite too, but like killed people left and right. But they were all bad guys. Yeah, but like that kind of thing, and then you'd see in other places too. Like we love the bad guys, in certain places, and then we sort of decide to love the bad guys outside of the little boxes where we could just enjoy them and let them loose, and said, yeah, that's cool for general society, and so I blame it on Batman. Superman's better than Batman. You should love Superman. And Batman's a sociopath. And you shouldn't love Batman. That's just one man's opinion, but, can't argue with the results of this wacky world that we're living in right now in 2026.
Yes, very. We need more humor. We need more laughing. That's what I tell people all the time. We need more humor. There's a reason Mel Brooks is still alive. He's going to be 100 here pretty soon. And, you look at all the comedians like Jerry Lewis, who died in his 90s. Carl Reiner, he died in his 90s. I mean, there's something to be said about humor and finding joy in life. And, it keeps you alive. And, I've been watching Monty Python a lot more lately. And, all of the old classic Mel Brooks movies. And just, because it's just like, man, I need some humor. I need some joy.
I'm pretty sure that also...
I don't like them anymore, but...
I'm pretty sure also all those guys had at least 1 or 2 drinks a day of like good scotch. And I think that you need to have good scotch. It will help you live longer, even if you don't do anything else right. Like if you don't diet or exercise, but I think like just a little bit of good scotch. I mean, unless you're an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, don't drink alcohol. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to derail anyone from what's successful for them, but if you're not, I think there were like 2 people that they interviewed like on the news, and like one of the gentlemen was like 104 years old, and like, what is your secret? He's like, every day I have a drink, and it was either scotch or bourbon, I can't remember which, and I have a scoop of vanilla ice cream. But you know, that's not what Jack LaLanne would have taught you to do. By the way, dead. I mean that's not what any health guru, you know, respected or otherwise, is going to tell you to do. But that guy, he's probably still alive, and probably having a bourbon-infused butterscotch vanilla ice cream cone right now and enjoying everything in his life. Did you happen to watch the miniseries, rather new to Netflix again? This is April of 2026, called Something Very Bad Is About to Happen.
Yes, me and my partner, me and her watched that.
Did you like it?
I liked it for the most part. I enjoyed it.
Me too.
I didn't love. I don't want to give away the ending. There was something with the ending I didn't fully love, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I'd say I gave it probably 99 out of 100. There was like one little part with the ending I didn't.
That's okay.
I was like, yeah, all right. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It wasn't what I was expecting.
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be more of like a supernatural, like there's a werewolf in the woods or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But no, I thought it was very well done, actually.
Yeah, though it was still very supernatural, just in a much more subtle way in reality. But of course, when there's something supernatural again in an isolated period, everything becomes more palpable and bigger. But I thought it was very good. I too, at first, with the end, I'm like, huh, what? But then I ruminated over it. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure if I watched it again, I'd like, but I try not to watch things more than once if I don't have to. Is there anything else that's somewhat new that you would recommend that's sort of in that vein that like is good? Because there's a lot of bad horror, but there's also like a good 10 to 12% of it that's really good. That, like in the old days, you call it a thriller or a psychological thriller. But there's it's a crossover. Is there anything else that's like sort of last 2-3 years that you'd recommend?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love anything that's a crossover. You just mentioned crossover. I just thought of, it's called Red Rabbit by Alex. Oh, I think it's Alex Greason. I think is his last name. If I apologize if I slaughter it. But it was a Western with horror. And it was really good. I really enjoyed that book. That was so good. And then there was The Devils. I just read that book. That was really well. Oh, I'm terrible with last names, authors' names in general, when I'm put on the spot. So
how about movies or TV shows for our?
Those are books, movie-wise,
or TV, or like or like miniseries or whatever, prestige TV, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I mean, I did love the remake of The House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, I love that.
The Haunting. I did love that remake. That was really good.
I love almost all the stuff that he's done. Dr. Sleep. Yep. I like Bly Manor a lot. Midnight Mass I thought is brilliant. Fall of the House of Usher, genius.
Yeah. Like I just said, I mean, Weapons, Sinners, I saw all of those. The Frankenstein remake, I saw that. That was really good. I always recommend those. Oh my goodness. You got me thinking now.
Is there a secret good vampire movie or secret good werewolf movie that like not enough people have seen?
Ooh, that's a good question. The vampire one, I would say, is Let Me In. I don't know if anyone's seen that one.
So the Scandinavian one and the American one. Most people like the Scandinavian one more. I like the American one more. They made a TV show of it, and it was clearly canceled, but it was pretty good, but sort of doomed to failure because you have kids that can't grow or change. So you're sort of doomed with that. And I don't know what led to its cancellation, other than they didn't plan ahead and didn't do all 3 seasons back to back to back. But whatever it was, it was okay. But you can't watch it because there's only 1 season of it, and it ends on sort of a cliffhanger and goes nowhere. But yeah, I endorse your recommendation of the movie.
Yeah, I was trying to think werewolf movies. I've read a good werewolf book not too long ago, but movie wise, they don't do. I feel like they don't do good werewolf movies.
I agree. That's why I'm asking.
They all kind of are the same. It's just, the guy gets bit. There's just this obsession with how they transform. Like, you got to see all of his bones snapping and his body twisting, and then he just goes on rampage and murders everyone. And people just rub. It's kind of the same thing over and over again.
I actually thought Werewolf by Night, the little Marvel mini movie, was actually one of the better werewolf things that I've seen in a while. And it came out right in the middle of Marvel doing nothing but shit. So I could see why a lot of people would have given up on, but it's actually quite good. It was done in the Universal Monster, sort of style, black and white. It's good. I'm surprised there hasn't been more follow up on that. They keep talking about the Dark Suns are going to come out. I know they've had all sorts of problems with Blade, and then finally decide not to do a Blade movie, which I think is fine. I mean, why remake Blade? It was perfect.
I'm not big into why they gotta remake everything. Just leave the originals. How about instead of remaking all the great movies, let's just remake really crappy movies? That's what I always tell people. Let's remake the ones that are really bad.
Yeah.
If your movie bombed, okay, let's remake it. Try it again.
Well, yeah, try and make it better. I mean, listen, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think Brightburn is a fantastic idea. I thought the movie itself was not particularly good. It wasn't terrible, but I think that there's not just a great movie in there, there's a great franchise in there. And I've been waiting for a sequel to Jennifer's Body forever. But the woman is probably 45 at this point. I mean, she was 23. I mean, she was probably a 23-year-old actress playing a 16-year-old. But you could put new characters in there.
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess they sort of tried the same thing with Ginger Snaps, and only the original was great, and everything. The other 2 movies were sort of stinky. But I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, Brightburn. That would be if you said remake something. I would say Brightburn.
Remake that one. Yeah. But I was sitting there thinking too while we were talking. How difficult it has to be to come up with an ending really satisfying to where no one really complains about it. I think in horror that's really hard. It's really difficult to come up with a satisfying ending where you're going to get the majority enjoy it. I think horror is just one of those really difficult genres. For me, when it comes to movies and books, I really hate when they kill the main character, when the main character dies at the end. Even if, I don't care if it's for some, he finished some unfinished business and they're now at peace and they accomplished all of this, that's what it's, I don't care. You kill them, it ruins the journey for me. I hate that. If you kill the main character. Doesn't matter if it's in a book or a movie. I don't care. Don't kill them.
Understood. Well, I thought the end of Brightburn was actually good. It was very reminiscent of the end of, I think, The Omen 2, where they've got the kid, basically in the ambulance with the emergency blanket on, and everyone, it's a kid, so they're innocent. There's no way they could be the bad guy. Actually, the first Omen was a strangely good prequel, but I don't think anybody saw it because it really felt like you were watching a 70s movie just with updated technology. And I don't know if that works for people these days, but it worked for me.
Are you a big fan of when they remake a movie, but it's just almost shot for shot the same movie? It's just changing the actors basically because it's years later. But they almost do shot for shot the same movie. Or would you rather if they remake it, just do completely something off the rails and just make it totally different?
I mean, I guess it depends on the execution, but the one what True Grit, I mean, basically that's what they did. They did the exact same movie, and I'm like, why? Why bother? And then a couple of years ago, the guy did Nosferatu, which is, he changed the end of Dracula and part of it, but it was basically Dracula. And the parts that were true to Dracula were extremely true to Dracula, but really didn't offer anything new. And then
I was worried about that one. I've yet to see that movie. Just for that reason, like you were just saying, I'm like, well, is it just another remake of? I've read Dracula and I've watched all the. I can only see the same story so many times.
Yeah, they do a good job of the beginning parts of it, but the parts they change, let me just put it, the ending makes the vampire look really, really stupid. I guess the part was that they can't control themselves when they're in a frenzy, which, okay, if it's more animal than man, I get it, but that was not really exactly ever conveyed, even in the Bram Stoker books. So I don't know. I didn't dig it, but I just didn't think it added much to my world. I mean, that's sort of how I felt about Frankenstein. I didn't think it really added. I feel like I've seen it or read it or consumed the story a bunch of times. I mean, it looked beautiful, though. I mean, it was shot beautifully. And it, at least it was true to the story, which is, but I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer to your question, but the few examples I can think of don't seem to have done anything for me. So I guess I'm going to go with no, that I'm not that interested in these, remakes that are basically shot for shot. If you're going to do something completely different, though, I would say an homage to, tell me it's a different, a different movie, but inspired by. I mean, there's plenty of characters and stories out there that you could do something different. I mean, Marvel's What If is basically that. I mean, all these alternate universes and multiverses and, in plenty of properties do that. Or you could take the same stories and put different characters in, like, I don't know. I'm not like a huge Star Trek fan, but there's, obviously billions of them. If you just put different characters into the same or similar Star Trek stories, you could probably have something interesting as long as the characters are interesting. There's an interesting dynamic. I mean, I know that people don't think that like some of the Star Wars remakes were just simply remakes of 4, 5, and 6, but it seems to me that they were, and that they failed on almost every level to me. So again, I guess the answer to your question is no, I don't like that. But I can't think of a whole lot of examples of it. So the data sample is not great. But on gut instinct, no, I don't. I'd rather see something original. I thought Heretic was very original. I thought Weapons was very original. Sinners was a original concept together. I actually like the story without the vampires better than the story with the vampires. That.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think
I didn't expect it to go vampires. That's not what I was thinking when I first saw previews and everything. I thought it was going to be a whole different story. But
yeah, I didn't. I do like the Irish actor. He plays a character called Paddy Mayne in a show called Rogue Heroes, which is not a great show. It's okay, but I didn't realize that he was like the leader of the Jimmy group in 28 Years, the recent movies, which, hey, that's another affliction movie. That's another epidemic kind of movie where there's some little groups of humanity, foraging around in places, still managing to eke out a survival.
Absolutely.
I thought the latest one, Bone Castle, was far better than the...
I haven't seen that one either. Yeah. I'm kind of behind right now. I'm not gonna lie.
I did not love the one before it. I thought it was actually a silly movie. People loved it. But, I mean, I see how it got you to Bone Castle and why I don't think Bone Castle was a great movie. I thought it was an entertaining watch. If you can deal with that kind of gore and you don't mind seeing zombie vampire dongs, I mean, it went in a different direction. I don't know about it as a movie. Like a lot of things seem like they're better for series anymore. And I don't know if Netflix has ruined us for movies or not. I think Hollywood is like slowly killing Hollywood. Like they're.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of torn. Sometimes I like a good series, but then sometimes I just like a movie too. I don't want to have to commit too long. I think it just depends on the mood and the feel of what you want to do. Because sometimes some series can go too long, and it's just like, all right, we need to end this. Like, should have been done 5 episodes ago.
Yeah. Well, Lost is probably Exhibit A in that, where they definitely went longer and in strange sideways directions where the writers and Game of Thrones, I know it was really nobody's fault. All the different changes that occurred, and George R.R. Martin still hasn't finished, the next book. God knows how much.
He said he wasn't going to, wasn't he? Didn't he announce he probably wasn't going to?
Yeah, I mean, he did, but like 12 years later. I mean, what a dick. Seriously, what a dick. I mean, I've said this so many times in this show, but I'm going to say it one more time. Because, and folks, you're saying you're repeating yourself. Not to this guest. I've never met this guest before. I felt I was closer to conclusion at the end of page 1 than I was after reading probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,500 pages. And I was not happy about that then. And I mean, I'm almost relieved because now Lord knows how many more books he would have had to go through to finally get us to an end. But at the same time, I would like to have seen what his ending would have been. I mean, the advent of audiobooks would have made it a whole lot easier to follow that path. I would have liked to have seen that what I thought was obviously supposed to be at least the main point getting you to the end was the end or not. Right. You know, if I'm right about that, if I think I'm so smart and I actually was so smart, or I'm not so smart, or I still was so smart, but he had even better twist or twists. I don't know. I just feel like you create that entire world, and you really did create almost an entire world, and create a sensation, and then make $1 billion and just be like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to hang around with Robert Redford and I'm going to do Dark Winds, which is okay, but it's not nearly as good as people make it out to be. It's like okay, it's like I don't know. Oh yeah, back to you. So, okay. Tell us one more time about the inflicted. I'm sorry, and the immune rise of the inflicted. Jesus Christ, never mind. You know what? Name your own book. I should probably.
I just like to say immune.
Okay, immune. All right. Are sequels coming along the way?
You know, I have an idea for a sequel. It's been hit or miss on what I really want to go, like the whole picture. And I'm not one of those people I like to write just for for purposes. I want to actually be inspired, have an idea come to me.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin the legacy.
I've been working on it. I just have a lot of other projects in the middle, so it won't be my next project, that's for sure.
And you don't want to force them. Like, are you familiar with the book The Passage?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I
didn't read it. I did the audiobook.
That's
just
okay.
The first book. I don't think I ever did the sequel. Weren't there like 3 of them?
There are 3 of them. But the end of the first book ended perfectly. And like you can tell, it wasn't supposed to have sequels. And the publisher said, you sold 1 million copies of this. We need sequels. And the second book was just so uninspired. And there's a 3rd book out there somewhere, but like they don't even sell the audiobook in the United States. I mean, so it's weird. It's because it's still on my wish list, and every now and then I push on the card, this title is not available. So I don't know.
Tell you what, if we can get me to 1 million copies, I definitely write a sequel. I'll do my best to make the greatest sequel of all time. Don't worry about it.
Well, you'd have to, but I hope that you do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my favorite book, The Descent by Jeff Long, which I would categorize in horror, but it also answers every question of everything that's ever gone bump in the night. About 11 years later, because of pressure, he wrote a sequel called Deeper, which was fine, but it didn't follow up on some of the most interesting parts of it. And while it was perfectly entertaining, it didn't really do anything new. And it's like, I don't regret reading it, but I almost regret that he wrote it because it should have been something better. He also wrote a book called Year Zero, which, by the way, is a pandemic plague kind of movie. And it's not a great book, but there's a great book in there. It's a better book than Brightburn is a movie, but it's both sort of the same thought where inside there's greatness. Yeah. Like Year Zero, and he won't be, as this guy I've already cursed a few times, so he's fucked off he apparently likes being a loner, like up in the mountain somewhere. So he's gone there to the top of, maybe he's near you, maybe he's on the top of the world somewhere near there. Maybe you guys can hang out and become best friends. He like Year Zero, I would like if he sanctioned that to be rewritten and just massage it. And And if you sanction somebody to write the proper sequel to The Descent, because it does deserve a sequel, just that's not the sequel that it should have been. But have you ever read it? And by the way, there is a movie based upon it, but it is like the basage is like on 2 points of a 500-point book. So it's barely based on it at all.
Yeah. No, I have not read it. But all the points you're making, it's exactly the reason I haven't went for writing a sequel yet.
I think you're right.
Just for all the points you just made. Yeah, if I do a sequel, I want it to really hit home, and I want it to be worth reading. I don't want to write a sequel just for a sequel. Like I said, that first publisher who published it, that was one of the things she brought up, was like, well, you should write a sequel. You should write one like next year. And I'm like, well, I don't have any ideas yet. I'm not just going to write, for writing purposes. I've heard many great authors give that advice. They say, don't write just because you have to, because otherwise your book doesn't come off good. People can tell, that you just wrote to wrote. There's a few great authors I know where I've read a few of their books and I stopped reading and I was sitting there just going, I wonder if that was like the last book of a contract. Like they're under a contract to write this many books and this was like the last one and they just wanted to hurry up and get out of the contract and just be like, I'm done. So they just quickly typed up this weird story and was like, all right, we're done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe that's part of the genius of Stephen King is that so many of his works are connected, but they're not necessarily sequels of one another. So he can sort of keep sort of the same universe. He can borrow some characters or themes from one another, or at least places, and put Easter eggs in there. But it's not the same. And I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan of all time, but I mean, you can't not respect someone who's written 50, bestsellers and spawned about, and his son is really good too. I mean, Joe Hill is, he's a writer, director.
Like King. I agree. I grew up with him. The only thing I don't like is some of his fan bases. They, as a horror author, they can be kind of frustrating because they think for some reason Stephen King was the birth of horror. Like he's the first one to ever write a horror book, and all the popular tropes that he wrote popular stories on were all created by him. Like he's the first author to write a pandemic narrative. He's the first one to write about a haunted hotel. He's the first one to write about that. And it's like, okay, people, chill out, calm down.
Right.
Like he's the first one to write about aliens and Tommyknockers. It's like, come on, people, chill, stop.
Right.
So that's the only other thing I ever get frustrated about is, if you have an idea and that fan base is quickly to be like, oh, you're just ripping off Stephen King. It's like, no, you're not. There's a difference between writing a popular trope versus ripping someone off.
The Dark Tower, correct ending or not?
I never finished The Dark Tower.
Yeah, well, there you go. I guess
I started the first book. I read The Gunslinger, and I had a friend who he's kind of one of those obsessive Stephen King fans I was just talking about. And he told me to not read it. He read the whole thing, and he told me not to. So that is one of the series I've debated about, because I've had so many people tell me not to read it, but then I've had so many people tell me to read it, and I've just been kind of torn, to be honest with you.
I'm going to tell you not to be
No, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you not to. Not that, I mean, we've been talking an hour, but I think that you have too many things going on to spend your time on that. Though, if your Stephen King devotee friend would like to come on the show, I would love to have someone sort of do a Stephen King show. But
I could do a Stephen King show too. I have a lot of opinions that annoy some Stephen King fans too. Because for starters, I think his best work is a lot of the ones they don't talk about, like Misery. I think Misery was one of his better books.
Well, the movie did okay.
Misery, yeah. The movie did good too, but I loved that book. The Outsider was good. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I liked it, but I don't praise it as high as a lot of the other people who just are obsessed with it.
I like The Outsider, and I like the Mr. Mercedes stuff. Because I guess I like things that are reality based, but there's just enough supernatural in it, to keep things interesting.
The Outsider's really good. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that was really good. That deserves, more I guess you can't if you're going from the source material, but it would be sort of interesting for that to have more seasons. And Ben, what's his name? Mendelthal, whatever it is. He's really good. And the woman who played Holly Givney was fantastic. Actually, both women who played Holly Givney were great in their own ways. Like, it took me a while to figure out it's the same character because I'm not so much of a devotee that I didn't recognize the name. And then I'm like, these quirks, I'm like, oh my God, no wonder it sounds familiar. It's the same character.
Yeah, one of my favorite authors right now is Jennifer McMahon. I don't know if she really considers herself horror, but she has a few books that definitely fall into that dark fiction horror thriller. But her stuff is really good. It's like The Night Sister, The Winter People, The Invited, The Drowning Kind. Her books, I love her books. Yeah. She's definitely one of those authors where, well, actually she does. She has a new book coming out in August, and I'm one of those fans where I'm like, I don't care what it's about. I'm buying it.
Okay, but, well, I'm gonna have to make a note of that. Jennifer McMahon, McMahon or McCann?
McMahon.
McMahon, like Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I'm gonna have to put something on my wish list because right now I'm in a science fiction mode. So I'm just gonna. Okay. But once I run after that, then I'll want to be in a different genre. So I'll put her down on there as well. All right. Well, this is really cool. All right. Tell us once again how to find and follow you and where to buy the book. Well, all the books and, hawk your stuff.
Well, you can definitely look me up on my website. So it's Seth, S-E-T-H-T, Voorhees, all one word, .com. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, or not Snapchat, sorry, Facebook. It's just, author T Voorhees, something like that. I don't post a whole lot. They've kind of been hijacked lately by our family rabbit Snowball, so you might not get a lot of horror on there, so sorry for that. But you can follow me on there. As far as book-wise, you can get them on any online bookstore. I mean, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, whatever your favorite retail store is. You can go online and do it. And I always recommend anyone to go into your local bookstore and, recommend it be on the shelf. Obviously, help me out there. And, yeah, for sure. Definitely help out with that. Yeah.
Did you lose the argument trying to name the rabbit Donnie Darko?
Yes, I did. Well, his name, he's actually a gray bunny, and when we got him, his name was Thunder, which was actually a perfect, or Stormy, and it was perfect because he's gray and his fur looked dark and stormy, but the daughter won out. She loved Secret Life of Pets and wanted to name him Snowball after the bunny in Secret Life of Pets. His name is Snowball, even though his fur is not white. So I just said, well, whatever. Your
kids are the worst, I tell you.
It bugs me not as much now, but originally it did. It's like, well, he's not a snowball. There's not even remotely.
Right. Well,
it's more like a dirty snowball.
Right, like a dirty snowball. Like, who wants the yuck?
It's the snow at the end of spring when it's melted and it's in the pile after the snowplow.
Right, after all the cars have driven over. It's exactly right. The dirty salt is in there and all that stuff. Yeah, carbonated. It's terrible. Well, here's something that no 7-year-old can outvote you on. What would you like the song to be as the outro song for your show, this episode? Outro song. It can be something dark and stormy. It can be something horror-related. It can be completely non-related to anything. It's just whatever you want. You could put in Brandy, You're a Fine Girl if you want to, for all I care.
Okay, well, this is going to tell you how much of a nerd, dork, millennial I am.
Okay.
But I would probably say, do you remember the ending of The Never-Ending Story? Where they're kind of like riding Falcor. Mm-hmm. It's just that really cool music. That'd probably be, I don't know what it's called. It's like probably the ride of Falcor or something like that.
Oh, let's find out together then. End theme of...
I always think that was a cool song.
No, if I could spell, it would make it... Of never...
The ride of Falcor or something like that.
Let's see if you're right.
Millennial nerds like me.
Well, there's a theme song, says Lamahi... Never Ending Story, Lamahi. Bastion's Happy Flight, I think is the
Maybe that's what it's called.
Bastion's Happy Flight. All right. Well, everyone, The Never Ending Story. This story, however, will end, but maybe to be continued, maybe not. We don't know if he's going to write sequels, but we know he's going to write again. Seth Voorhees, thank you for being on the show. If you want to do that Stephen King thing, with or without your friend, actually, more voice. I am not that much of a acolyte of Stephen King. I know enough. I've read or listened to about 15 the Dark Tower was 7 books. So with, about 20 of his works, I've seen a lot more. I've loved some, liked some, didn't like some as much. So actually having, more people with knowledge and different views would be interesting, because I don't have that much to add to it, which is not unusual for these shows. I mean, part of the purpose of this show is for me to learn about things that I don't know very much about, or be exposed to things that I don't get exposed to very much. So that would be cool. But pretty soon, people will think this is the never-ending podcast. So I will thank our guest one last time and definitely support his work. And I thank you for being on the show. And yeah, keep in touch.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.